Welcome to the DNA Talks podcast, where we take on the mission of unlocking the code of your genetics. This season is all about you, upgrading your health, not just on the surface, but down to the root cause. Join us as your clinicians at the DNA company investigate your DNA and beyond. The intention of this podcast is to enhance your lifestyle by changing what is in your control. This does not substitute the medical advice given by your personal doctor, therapist, and other healthcare professionals.
Welcome back to the DNA Talks podcast. I'm your host and co-founder of the DNA company, Bryce Wylde. And our mission, of course, here is to unlock the profound secrets hidden within your DNA, guiding you on a journey to elevate your health beyond mere quick fixes or trendy biohacks. This season is all about empowering you to take control of your well-being by addressing the root causes of health issues and to get you from good to better through all the way to your best. And remember, the insights that we share are designed to educate and not to replace the advice and guidance of your healthcare professional. And today we have the honor and privilege of exploring the transformative power of self-healing. And this is with the esteemed Dr. Fab Mancini. He is a world-renowned functional medicine expert, traditionally trained chiropractor, and best-selling author who's been transforming lives. I mean, that's an understatement with his groundbreaking approach to natural healing. From the stages of the Dr. Phil show to the airways of his own radio show, Dr. Fab has inspired millions to unlock their body's innate power to heal. And today he's here to challenge everything you thought you knew about wellness and to show you how true health starts from within. Dr. Fab, it's a real honor and pleasure to have you on the show.
Well, thank you, Bryce. I'm a big fan, and I'm so excited to have this conversation with you.
Well, as am I, sir. And first of all, let me just say, I really appreciate everything you stand for, everything you do. I'm shocked that our paths haven't more frequently crossed, and we're always in the halls of various conferences and continuing education, both delivering on stage as well as learning. It's incessant and never ends, but it is really an honor and privilege to have you on the show. I thought, we'd get a little philosophical right out of the gate, if that's okay with you.
I'm looking forward to it.
So here's the thing. In your book, which I love, and I think everyone needs to read, The Power of Self-Healing. It's a bestseller. It reached international acclaim, continues to, translated into multiple languages. You discuss at length this notion that healing comes from within, of course, and that it's the process by which the body, the mind, the spirit, we've heard this before, but your bent is very unique, work in concert so that we can become whole again. You even write an entire chapter on healing versus curing, which I'd be very intrigued if we sort of unboxed that. But here it is. Where things get a little more philosophical is what do you believe is the ultimate purpose of illness in the human experience in the first place?
That's a great question because I've always feel that challenges, obstacles are only there to push us to become a better version of ourselves, to fulfill our potential. So if you didn't have illness, how could you appreciate healing? And that's really where a foundational it all begins. I was trained to be a traditional doctor, and I was heading towards becoming a neurosurgeon. I'd been accepted at medical school, and I got involved in a car accident 6 months before I graduated from my pre-med, and ended up in the hospital. I had done a rotation in that hospital, and the waiting line was 4 hours. So I called one of the orthopedic surgeons that I knew was working, and I said, is there anything that you can do to speed up the process? I'm in severe neck pain. He came down. He looked at me and he said, look, Fab, you got severe whiplash. I can give you muscle relaxers. I can give you painkillers, but you really need to go see my chiropractor. Now, I didn't know what chiropractic was. I was raised in South America, in Colombia. I lived in Italy. We didn't know about chiropractic. So I assumed that it was a specialty in medicine. So I go that afternoon there, and I'm looking around in the room, and it just seemed like a whole different office setting. People were smiling, they were happy, but it was packed. And because of my curious nature, I started asking. And one person here was saying, oh, I'm here because I have back pain. Another person's here is, oh, they scheduled a surgery, I herniated this surgery, and the doctor's trying to prevent that surgery. Another one had respiratory asthma issues. Another one had infertility issues. Another one had digestive issues. And in my mind, Bryce, this is what came to me at an early stage in my life. How can one provider help so many people? And they just mentioned 7 or 8 specialties. 95% of all the medical graduates go into a specialty. 95%. So that means how does one doctor, one provider can help so many people? And that's when I felt I was introduced to what I call preventative medicine. But it was 1987. There was no preventative medicine. There was no wellness. But that's what came to me. What came to me was the fact that 95 or 90% plus of all the illnesses out there can actually be prevented. And if the patients will engage, if they change their attitude or mindset towards the illness, and we'll go into that a little bit later, or if they change their lifestyle behaviors, their choices that they make every day. Those are the two things that in 38 years I found out are the true transformational factors in becoming a healthy human being. So I decided to go the natural route. I became a doctor of chiropractic. As I was studying chiropractic, I became an acupuncturist. I studied nutrition. I studied energy medicine. And I became obsessed with what I call natural healing. And that's where I spend the majority of my professional life.
So this is profound because, full circle to the question, ultimate purpose of illness in the human experience. Not only was this an experience you had, changed your life, it changed your trajectory on how it was that you were going to approach not only helping the masses, but become so honed and expert in your ability to translate the experiences of others. If self-healing is possible, and you've proven it, and you extended again to millions of others out there as to how this is done, we'll talk a little bit later about your 21-day program and some other insights. But do you think that on a grander scheme, our health crises, and that is to say obesity, heart disease, diabetes, cancer, all of this sort of serves as a bit of a wake-up call for deeper, spiritual, emotional misalignments? I mean, can we extend it to that level?
I think it's boiled on a couple of things. And I've been asked to speak at different countries about their healthcare systems, including here in the United States, of course. And I boiled it down to this. Unfortunately, we live in a healthcare system that by the time you enter, you have to be a symptomatic patient. So it's not really a healthcare system. It's more of a disease-oriented system. So that in itself, in my opinion, is the seed for a failure system. Second, we have the number one mechanism that doctors, especially traditional medical doctors, are trained on is through chemistry, through pharmaceuticals. And unfortunately, we have learned that our bodies and our illnesses are not necessarily root cause based on chemistry. If that was the case, this country consumes, about 80% of the pharmaceuticals that are produced? So there's not a lack of chemistry out there. What there is a lack of is going deeper into the problem. So when this doctor came to me, when I went to see him, the chiropractor, he said to me, there are 3 things that we're going to do in this office. I noticed you are graduating from pre-med school. I know you're going to go become a medical doctor. But in our office, we're going to emphasize 3 things. The number one, we're going to remind you every day that your body is a self-healing organism. When you study physiology, when you study biochemistry, your body has the ability to heal naturally. Number 2, your body is composed of different systems. Those systems have organs. Those organs have cells. Every cell, every organ is designed to function to help you stay healthy. One of the most important systems of the body is the nervous system. It controls and regulates all the other systems. And then thirdly, and this is the one that did it for me, in our office, we're going to address your symptoms. In my case, whiplash, neck pain. But we're going to focus over 90% of our time trying to look for the root causes of your problems. And when he mentioned root causes to me, I've never heard those words before. I was saying to myself, none of my professors celebrate the natural ability for the body to heal. Never did I have a professor in pre-med that ever said, hey guys, guess what? Your body can actually heal naturally. Never. Never did they break the system to say, these systems work in harmony like a symphony to keep us in a state of what we call in science homeostasis. It's a state of balance. So that is happening every single day of our lives. And then when he mentioned the root cause, I just got a glimpse of what I wanted to be. I wanted to spend the rest of my life looking for the root causes of a problem. And that's what led me to my fourth book, this Power of Self-Healing, which led me to really understand that the root causes can be boiled into three different levels: the physical, the emotional, and the spiritual. And that's why, many of my friends was like, don't talk spiritual, leave that for religion. And I'm like, look, you cannot deny that the spiritual, because the way that I frame the spiritual, a lot of it has to do with your belief system. And your belief system has a lot to do with your healing. So I wanted to bring the spiritual component into the discussion, because many of the patients that I interviewed that were told that they could not heal, many of them said to me, you know what, if you were to ask me why I healed, is because my church was praying for me. My synagogue was praying for me. My temple was praying for me. My friends, so I prayed, or I just started believing and having hope that even though the doctors were saying there was no cure, I just felt like maybe there was something out there that somebody was missing. And I wanted to bring that into the conversation. And believe it or not, this book has been a bestseller for 10 years. I get more requests to talk about the emotional and the spiritual component of healing than I get about the physical. Because the physical is not where the magic is. That is the last one.
Right. Well, so I'm going to take it as a yes. This serves as wake-up calls for deeper spiritual and emotional misalignments that are now pretty much manifesting as global. And I want to ask you, to really unpack this for us, what it means, because you threw out a couple of key terms: root cause, chemistry, and you were referring to pharmaceutical chemistry. We, of course, use a very powerful multitude of chemistry and biologics within. But what does it truly mean? Because I think these terms fall on deaf ears because they're thrown around a lot. But what does it mean for folks out there who are maybe even giving up on the mainstream medical approach to heal from within? And why are so many people underestimating their body's natural ability to restore health? What's behind this?
That's a great question. So I boil it down to a few things. Number one is that most individuals allow a third-party opinion, a provider, to actually dictate what is best for them. When we studied the chiropractic philosophy, there was an interesting term that chiropractic brought into the health space, and it's called innate intelligence. So your innate is your inner wisdom, but your inner wisdom whispers to you. And the problem is that even though deep down inside, you may know what's causing your problem, and I'm going to give you some examples of that. Many times the outer voices, right? Your parents, your friends, they're telling you what you should be doing, what you should be thinking, right? And many times we have been conditioned to allow our doctors, our friends, our influencers in the medical space to dictate our course of action. So I think that has, unfortunately, conditioned people not to be in tune with their own ability to heal. Because if you start really being in tune and you start learning, like for me, when I started taking courses on embryology, right, and I started seeing the embryo and the systems built out, and then you start learning about physiology, which is the function of the different organs of the body and what they were designed to do, and how each cell is designed to do a particular function. But the interesting thing is that that function impacts another cell's function. So everything works in harmony. And the more you start figuring that out, you realize my body has pretty much everything it needs to heal. And the problem with science is that many times scientists and researchers look at the body and they try to mimic a response of the body that is a natural response through chemistry. The problem is that every time you have a chemistry produced in a lab, the body views as a foreign agent, the same as it views a bacteria or a virus. So it starts building antibodies. It starts building defenses against what you're giving the body, even though your doctor's saying, take penicillin. Well, the body's going to look at penicillin as a foreign agent. It's not going to necessarily embrace it and say, oh, thank you, you're here. In fact, we have seen many cases that a lot of people respond to penicillin in a way that unfortunately gives them side effects that are worse than the symptoms that they were having. So why not understand the body and say, okay, the body has an immune system. That immune system is made up of organs that the thyroid that can produce cells that are antibodies that can help fight off this infection or fight off this virus or this bacteria. And because we don't understand, we just assume that right now the chemistry is the only option until there is no option for you. There is no chemistry, there is no pharmaceutical out there, or the pharmaceutical that you're taking is making you sick, or whatever they prescribe for you does not work for you. Now you push yourself to say, what else is out there? But what if we began that way? What if we began with what is out there before we introduce something that can actually be a toxic to the body, or it can create side effects, or which is the second biggest reason for people dying in the United States, which is the side effects of drugs, right? That's what I wanted to spend my life doing, encouraging people to be more conservative, holistic in their choices before they introduce pharmaceuticals and before they even consider a surgery.
Iatrogenic pharmaceutical overdoses, mismatched drugs. And I gotta say, in this world, I feel time is never allocated to first line therapy or to give the body a chance, because people are always sort of overly obsessed with big pharma solutions, mainstream medical technology, quick fixes, and really the essence of what it truly means to be, well on a holistic level. But in my view, I think there are generally these two types, agree or disagree, two types of individuals when it comes to well-being. There's the health seekers who are focused on kind of finding solutions to a specific health problem. They've been diagnosed, they have a label. And then there are wellness seekers who basically aim to enhance their overall well-being. They want to go from good to better or to great. For those in the first group, though, the health seekers, do you think there's really even a point where the pursuit of healing can actually become a barrier to fully living life, or even seeking out, in this case, the body's own ability to overcome? And so in other words, how does one strike a balance between the need to heal, or in your chapter, you describe heal versus cure, and the desire to actually get into living a fulfilling life and allow the body to overcome, if that makes sense?
Because most people, unfortunately, what I wanted to say in that chapter is that when I interview patients, when I talk to different providers, there is this perception that curing is when no longer your symptoms are visible, or that you feel them, or perhaps your tests are negative for the first time. The challenge is that that doesn't necessarily mean that your body has healed whatever process got you to be there in the first place.
Right.
Because remember that if I go do a blood work, and if I do a urine test, which is your two basic common tests for most people out there, those are very static. In fact, in the functional space, we don't even consider those viable. We want to go deeper. We want to do functional blood. We want to see the blood cells right there. We want to see what's happening. We want to test the urine from a whole different perspective. And then, of course, with genetics, we have a whole different dimension, which we'll talk about it too, which gives us a whole different blueprint of what's possible even in our bodies. So I think that for those people that are right now trying to just find an alleviation of their symptoms, right? My question to them is, what is pain in the first place? Pain is the alarm system of the body. The symptoms are there only to give you an alarm to say, hey, there may be something going on that you got to pay attention to. So if a pharmaceutical is designed to block those symptoms, which is what most of them are, then what does that do for the potential problem that caused it in the first place? So the analogy that I give is if I go to a studio, I bring in a fire alarm, right? Something that you see in your kitchen or your house or your apartment. And then I take it out, and I went to Home Depot and bought one actually. And then I say, a fire alarm is like a system, a symptom. Whenever you have a symptom, and I press the red button, it's like that noise that is telling you that maybe smoke, and behind the smoke may be a fire, right? That can burn your place down. So if I'm frustrated with the noise, if I'm frustrated with the pain, what do? And then I take a tape and I cover the speaker and I press the button, and about 90-80% of the sound goes away. But I'm still hearing it a little bit. That's like a pharmaceutical. It didn't do anything for the smoke. It didn't do anything for the potential fire, but at least you're not conscientious as much. But then it gets worse. I don't even want to hear that 20%. So what I want to do is, and I take the batteries out, and that's like a surgery, right? Just take it out, just cut it out. And I said, but what did I do for the potential smoke or the fire behind it? That's exactly how I want people to view their symptoms. Symptoms are good. That's your body's ability to warn you that something that you may be doing, maybe the stress levels in your life are changing the chemistry. Maybe you're emotionally overwhelmed in a relationship that maybe abuses or whatever. All of those things are there to just hopefully guide you as to what needs to change in order for you to be healthy again, to feel good again, not to have any symptoms. But to mask them, to even get rid of them, has never made sense to me since I entered this space of holistic healing. It never made sense to me, but it's the way that over 80% of the people deal with their illnesses every day.
And in that experience, how much do you think is influenced by unconscious beliefs? And for that matter, by the way, because I think you're alluding to it, but forgiveness, self-forgiveness, and even other forgiveness, how much do you feel like the emotionality at the crux is playing a role? And also, by the way, how can we access and change those beliefs in order to allow for self-healing?
So right now, ever since the pandemic, we're dealing with what they call the mental health tsunami. That means that mental health illnesses have risen to no end, from depression, anxiety, suicide, you name it. Stress levels are very high right now across the world, humanity. So to me, when I started interviewing individuals, I discovered that there were three primary emotions that can actually help you self-heal. And the first one was forgiveness. Because what happens is a lot of times when somebody or something happens that harms you, and you have anger, and you have potentially frustration or resentment, those things have been proven to actually change the chemistry in your body, to increase bad hormones, like cortisol, increase the chemistry that is harmful to the body. So by forgiving, you're actually allowing the body's chemistry to be more balanced, and therefore your body to heal naturally. So for instance, in the early days, we had a lot of cancer. And I remember talking to one of my dear friends. He was one of the leading oncologists, Bernie Siegel. So Bernie was one of the leading oncologists in the world. And I never forget Bernie saying to me, I said, Bernie, you're getting more success on cancer patients than anybody out there. What is it that you're doing? And listen to what he said to me. He said, Fab, what people don't understand is that the three main causes that I have found can help a patient go into remission and hopefully heal, because I don't even like the word remission. Either the cancer is there or it's not. For you to think that your body's in remission, you're already expecting it to come back. The mindfulness of an illness is just not in the right place. But anyways, this is what he said to me. I look for three things. Number one, the belief system that the patient has that they can get over the cancer. He said that's the most important one. If a patient believes that their body has the ability to get rid of the cancer and heal the cancer, most likely they're going to get better. The second one, the belief system of how much they trust in the delivery of the provider that is delivering that treatment. And he said, It could be a nutritionist with a microbiotic diet. It could be a chiropractor giving adjustments. It could be an acupuncturist doing needles. It could be a holistic doctor with a naturopath, etc. How much the patient believes in that provider, that is the right provider for them, is critical. And then lastly, he said, in whatever the treatment they chose. So it didn't matter to him what treatment they chose. What he was looking for is that did they believe that that treatment was the right treatment for them? Right? So then I said to him, I said, Bernie, you mean to tell me that after all this science and all the billions of dollars that have been raised in cancer research, it all boils down to a belief system? And that in itself is a big portion of our self-healing process. It begins with a mindfulness to make you aware, right? I realized that mindfulness is all about being aware and being in tune with something out there that most people are not. So for me, my awareness is that my body was designed to heal naturally. My body was designed to live to 120 years old, healthy. My body was meant to actually give me more energy now at 58 than I had when I was 20. Yeah. Right? My body was meant to regenerate my skeletal bones, my organs, which it constantly regenerates all of those organs. So once I have that awareness, that mindfulness, then now I can choose better behaviors for myself. But if I'm stuck in like, you know what, I'm going to get sicker as I get older. I'm going to start aging. By the time he's 30 or 40 years old, it's going to go down. And all of a sudden, you start preparing and planning for that outcome. And that becomes your reality. That's really one of the most foundational things that we have discovered over the years, is that the attitude that the patients have, the mindset that they have towards this illness, is what pretty much determines the outcome that they will have regardless of the treatment they use.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And, you know, without sounding like a shameless plug, I got to say, at the DNA company, one of the most profound lessons that I've learned about, you know, a journey into self-healing is to first accept and understand, not just accept. Understand is number one, your executive function. This is more of on the biological side, less the ethereal philosophical side, but certainly executive function, mood, and behavior is very grounded in biochemistry. And there are genes that dictate why one person might be more predisposed to being anxious. You mentioned anger. To your analogy of that, you know, alarm that goes off when there's a fire, anger is like just fanning the flames, right? And we can make that symptom much worse, let alone what we might do with a broomstick to smash down the alarm. Anger is at the basis of so much disease. But once you understand your executive function, mood, and behavior chemistry, it's much easier to first forgive yourself for the behavior that you're most predisposed to. And second, to make changes as appropriate and where possible to manifesting more positive outcomes. I mean, this is so possible. So before we get into that, because we are going to get into genomics and we are going to get into the foundational, you know, biochemistry of life through DNA analysis. But are you game to do a quick rapid fire, sort of a true false question?
Yeah.
I feel if you feel compelled by the beyond just a true and false, if you feel compelled to sort of add a short reason as to why you answered the way you did, excellent. Okay. If it's just a true or a false, that's just fine as well. Okay. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So true or false, the human body can repair itself without any external intervention.
True.
True or false, mindset alone can be more powerful than medicine or pharmaceuticals in some cases.
True.
That's an easy one. It gets harder, by the way. True or false?
No, that's okay.
Self-healing is only effective for minor health issues.
False. We have seen spontaneous remissions. We have seen spontaneous healing, and it's been well documented in the literature.
Incredibly. Emotions like anger, which we just talked about, and resentment can actually slow down the body's healing process.
True. That's been proven in science.
How about this? Every illness has a hidden emotional or spiritual cause behind it.
True. Maybe you're not aware of it. Maybe it hasn't shown up. But if you explore, I bet you anything you'll find it.
True or false? Natural remedies are always safer than pharmaceutical drugs.
True, because your body doesn't view them as a foreign substance or as a foreign object. And that's when the body becomes defensive and it tries to attack. Or that's why a lot of times, as a doctor of chiropractic, people will come to me many times and they will say, "Oh, I had an injection. And it lasted me 4 weeks. The pain was gone." And then they wanted me to do a second one, but it only lasted 2 days. And then the third one didn't work. And I said, because your body is actually creating immunity towards what you injected. And it might have given you the relief because of the chemistry and the pain blockers that the injection has. But anyway, so the whole idea is definitely your body has the natural response to look at natural things in a whole different way than unnatural things.
And, just a strong caveat here for all our listeners. We're not suggesting people switch out their, prescribed drugs, nor are we saying that they should do anything short of talk to their pharmacist, their healthcare practitioner, their GP, or their specialist before changing anything about what they're doing. But natural remedies are, as you just described, usually much more identifiable to the body, and they have multitudes of effects. Whereas, drugs have typically single specific, endpoint actions. I would also say a natural remedy can go well beyond a botanical or an ingredient. It can extend itself into a chiropractic adjustment or a review and modification of a belief system, a meditation. So natural remedies, no miracle to them either. I don't want to position them in some kind of miracle light. They're simply getting the body to work better or more optimally on its own without too much intervention. That's the idea. How about this? A positive attitude is probably the most important factor in the healing process.
True.
And how about the environment, that you live in, the surroundings? It has no real effect on your body's ability to heal, right?
False. In fact, the environment is so much part of the healing process.
Absolutely. A couple more to go. Self-healing can be accelerated by practicing gratitude daily.
True. One of the most powerful emotions is gratitude.
And just quickly, what can be an example of what somebody might do to accentuate that or put that into practice?
Usually, I wake up every day being grateful. And it's interesting. Louis Hay was a dear friend of mine. And, Louis Hay built the Hay House, which is one of the largest publishing companies in the world. And she used to say that she began her day by waking up and saying to the bed, "I'm so grateful for you for giving me the opportunity to sleep these 8 hours." And then she would go around the whole morning thanking everything around her and the people around her and be grateful in that way and go to sleep the same way. So waking up and going to sleep with gratitude is one of the most powerful emotions to self-heal.
Couldn't agree with you more. Knew her loosely as well, acquainted, and I'll tell you something. I grew up. My mother was well ahead of her time. I, like you, was actually headed toward mainstream medicine, psychiatry, and I did a full, 180. Bottom line, though, I grew up immersed in Dr. Andrew Weil's literature, Louise Hay, a lot of these leaders of their time. And I can tell you the biggest reservation I have from a lot of patients when I say practice gratitude as part of a plan of action to, toward better health is, what if I really don't believe it? Well, and I say often that might happen at first, but there's a lot of studies, psychology studies that show even smiling, even if you don't feel happy, just the act of smiling. And the more you do it, you actually may, or even with the Japanese practice, purposeful laughter. In the beginning, it might sound stupid, but you start laughing and then it actually becomes funny. And then actually, guess what? The oxytocin, the noradrenaline, dopamine starts to get released. So here's the bottom line. If you start practicing gratitude daily, even if you are thankful for your bed in this context, you may not initially believe it. The more you practice saying it and, maybe even some cases out loud, your brain you can't tell the difference. You start to become incredibly grateful and it just, the biochemistry will follow.
And I remind people also that gratitude is not just about things, right? Many times we focus on the things in our lives. I'm grateful for my car. I'm grateful for my home. I'm grateful for my clothes, my purses, whatever. Be grateful for you. This is the one thing that I find most people omit in their daily gratitudes, is that they forget to be grateful for them,
Right.
for their ability to exist in this moment and be able to maybe even contribute some value,
Yeah.
because that is very powerful. So, and besides yourself, of course, the people in your life. I've had so many people come to me and they say thank you because I noticed that I haven't been that grateful to my significant other, my partner. We wake up every day, but I don't wake up in time to caress them and love them and kiss them and maybe even make love to them, right? I'm rushing out of bed. And if I have children, I'm rushing them out of school and I'm rushing them to get dressed and I'm rushing them to pick up their stuff instead of, maybe cooking a great breakfast
Right.
for them or maybe cuddling with them, etc. So be grateful for the people in your life too, besides yourself.
And, and most people don't take a proverbial stop to smell the roses. And I would add one more thing to that. I think this is important for people to hear. They're so hyper focused when and if they're a health seeker looking for a problem or a solution rather to their problem. And they often focus too heavily on the percent of success rate given intervention. And I'm not even talking about natural versus conventional or both. I'm just suggesting a lot of people over focus on the percent within the scientific literature or even a doctor Google search on success or surviving the condition. I ask these individuals to take a moment and stop to think about the percentage of chance that they even exist on this planet, the fact that they are alive, and the percent of chances they could have succumbed to any illness, or for that matter, be hit by a car. I mean, you factor in all these other percentages, and it's almost literally at the point of a miracle that you are where you are today, no matter what level of health you're exuding. So chance and that bell curve, it's n of one, right? This is functional medicine at its best, considering that individual, where they're at now and how they might actually get themselves to a more optimal version of themselves. So last, true or false, and then we'll get into practical applications. The body's self-healing mechanisms are stronger than what modern mainstream conventional, whatever you want to call it, medicine can offer.
I would say yes, but also remember, traditional medicine has a great value. I've worked in different hospitals. I understand the value of being able to save a life through chemistry,
Right.
through technology, etc. When we talk about these type of things, we're talking primarily about the chronic illnesses that where traditional medicine has not been effective, and which is your heart disease, your cancer, your diabetes, your obesity now, your arthritis, all of these things, your chronic pain, all of these things are the ones that the only thing that I've always tried to do is encourage and inspire people to get a second opinion, but not a second opinion in the same specialty that you're dealing with. Go outside of traditional medicine and go interview a chiropractor, interview an acupuncturist, interview a homeopath, interview a naturopath, because that's where you're going to find potentially the solutions you're looking for.
It's the team. It's the team approach. And I would argue even, further that, the body's self-healing mechanisms are in place no matter what the intervention is, so sometimes the intervention is a little too strong, maybe a little too, quote unquote, unnatural, but the body's healing mechanisms are always at play. And you're right. I think it's the team approach. You get a group. Perhaps you assign the quarterback position to the one that's most trusted, to your earlier point of trust being so paramount to the outcome, but you get a team behind you. So some practical advice, for the majority of listeners out there. And we said we'd get into this a little bit. At the DNA company, we love to emphasize and remind folks, obviously, whenever possible, that where, you can't change your DNA. You're dealt the cards that mom and dad have dealt you. And then you are who you are and have won. But those genes can't be, well, maybe one day with CRISPR, but that's besides the point. But you can modify genetic expression in your favor toward a longer, healthier life through these modifications we're talking about: nutrition, lifestyle, mindfulness, mind shift, position on outlook shift, even supplementation. Obviously, but informed by your individual variations in these pathway genomics, we refer to them. So do you buy into that philosophy, informed by genomics to some degree?
It's not that I buy into it, it's what the data has proven. So I remember over 35 years ago, the big talk was genetics. And we were spending a lot of money through the NIH and many other grants to study the gene. And then all of a sudden, we realized that there was a new science emerging called epigenetics. And for those of you that may not be familiar with that term, epigenetics is the environment around the cell. So the genetics tells you what the cell is. The epigenetics is the environment around it. Well, scientists began to notice that the environment around the cell can actually dictate how that gene expression will be. So on a cellular level, for us that were scientists, we were looking at that and saying, but what does that mean in reality? So remember, I made the statement earlier, environment is critical. Environment is one of the components of a healthy human being. Because if you live in an environment that is extremely stressful, right? You are in a relationship that is toxic, constantly arguing, constantly, you can't even sleep at night, constantly feeling demeaned, not validated, etc. That's going to have a toll in your body because that stress level is going to break down your body, etc. So to me, the beauty of this, and especially with the DNA company, when I first got my test and I got my results, I never forget how the first thing I said to myself is, I've never seen a company that has actually given you the genetic testing results, but at the same time, did the epigenetics in the most relevant, practical way that anyone can apply those behaviors. And that, I believe, is the key of genomics. Genomics is the blueprint of what is possible within your body. It's going to give you identification of things like you mentioned earlier, and you know this space better than me. But what I love about it is that now that I have a blueprint for me, understanding even what medications may actually have an adverse effect to me, right? Because that's one of the things that genomics have actually brought to the world, is that everybody should have a test that tells them, and give it to your doctors or in a hospital if you ever end up there, to avoid certain things that your body is already predisposed to have an adverse effect. But that's just for the medications. But what about your regular life? What about the nutrition, right? I teach in my book that nutrition shouldn't be about being fed, about feeling full, about diminishing that hunger. Nutrition should be about what factors does this nutrition have to enhance my ability to function today. So this one is going to boost my immune system, this nutrition. That one is going to actually help my digestive system be better. So whether it's a vegetable, whether it's a supplement, that's what I love about the fact that you are combining genetics, epigenetics, and making it a practical thing that everybody can do every single day.
And let's talk about them in your language for a moment. You refer to these as strengtheners and how they can enhance the body's self-healing. So specific foods that promote self-healing that ultimately have a real profound effect on the body that may or may not be DNA informed, but give us some examples of what those might be. And even in your clinical practice, where have you seen, foods or nutritional shifts seem to make miraculous or let's use a better term, more clinically relevant outcomes?
Well, as you know, being in this space for so long, we boil down that a foundational concern that we have in somebody that is being unhealthy is inflammation. So now the good news is that we have functional testing that can actually let us know which foods you may be sensitive to in the negative way. Which foods may cause more inflammation in your body than other foods that may be healthier to your body. So for instance, for me, when I started understanding this for myself, remember, I'm Colombian Italian. So food is in the center of our cultures. Everything we do is about food. And I've taught for many years that the reasons that diets don't last is because the emotional attachment that a food has towards you and your life. So for instance, Growing up, I would have my grandmother prepare this sauce, right? This Italian sauce that she put a lot of great things in it, or make desserts, or give us pasta. All of the things that for somebody may say, hey, that's unhealthy, right? That's not following the Mediterranean diet or whatever. But for me, what it translated to, my grandmother loves me. I am nurtured by my family. So all of a sudden, I go to a doctor, I go to a provider, I go to a nutritionist, and they said, Fab, you got to cut out the pasta. And by the way, that sauce that you inherited from your grandmother, you got to cut that out, man. That's just got too many things that are not healthy for you. What are you actually saying to me? You're saying, stop being loved by your grandmother, stop being loved by your family, etc. So to me, for instance, I'll give you a very simple one. It's avocado. Avocado is something that I was raised with it. We even had an avocado tree in my house in Colombia. I remember that, but I never ate it. I never thought I would like it, so I never had it in my meals. But as I got older, I realized, wow, an avocado can be a healthy fat. And maybe I don't like the taste of an avocado when I try to bite it, but what about if I put it in my blender, right? If I put my kale and my spinach and I put 1 or 2 avocados in it, and then I mix it, all of a sudden now it's like, wow, this was amazing. So there's ways that you can consume healthy foods, but you need to identify which are the foods that are making you feel good, which are the foods that are making you feel sick, inflamed, or have a stomach ache, or whatever the case may be, and begin to understand the properties of those foods, like berries. I love berries because they're low in sugar, but they also are great antioxidants, right? So that means that it's going to help my body fight this oxidative state that is aging me very rapidly. So if I want an anti-aging, fruit in the mornings, then berries is my best option because it's low in sugar, but it has all those wonderful properties.
You're going to love this. It's just coming down the pipe. Internal review, crunching numbers at the DNA company. We've now done well over 20,000 specimens, individual genomic panels, functional pathway panels. And of course, we do it more meaningful than the average company. We're not just looking at SNPs or these single nucleotide polymorphisms. And for anyone out there who's not really, deep into genomics and DNA informed lifestyle, dietary enhancement, what it means is looking at single letter switches in your DNA code versus often what we'll look at are large pages worth of information called copy number variations. And I just wanted to touch on this because what you mentioned is really important as it pertains to learning more about in functional medicine and even testing food sensitivities, because the question is not always about what food is healthier, certainly not for the average population, but for you, the individual. As you mentioned, for some, they're okay with pasta, certainly semolina pasta, less gluten, or, pesticides you might find in Italy. Sometimes it's tomatoes. These are maybe healthy foods and most things in moderation, but there's a lot of folks out there having responses to healthy foods that are negative. And here's what's happening. So this is what's exciting. What we have found is that in one's individual ability to detoxify, identified by what is called a family of glutathionization genes, looked at in copy number variations. So GSTT1, GSTM1, and even through a SNP, GSTP1. So this is one's body's ability genetically, from what mom and dad have dealt you, your ability to detoxify and to, as you described, the antioxidant and pro-oxidant status of the body and how blueberries might help you to reduce inflammation and control oxidative stress. But one's genetic ability to manage oxidative stress and toxins has a huge bearing on what happens in the gut and even the gut microbiome. And we, by the way, have expanded our line of testing at the DNA company. We do microbiome analysis, as you know. We do pharmacogenomics, looking at what drugs, even supplements, are right for the individual, liquid biopsy, cancer screen, et cetera, et cetera. But here's what's so cool. If you have what's called a null variation, null variant copy number variation, that means you don't have the code or you don't have the instruction manual for your glutathinization pathways very fast. Your microbiome is disrupted. I don't care where you live or what your diet is. And so now here's what's happening. these individuals are way more like, I mean, I'm talking astronomically more predisposed to elevated zonulin. As you and I both know, that means translocation of byproducts of foods and even small chain carbohydrates translocating into the general system, the circulation, and then your body going, well, what the heck is this? And developing antibodies to it. So even if the foods are otherwise considered healthy, we could have these food sensitivities. So the structured protocol or the approach to this may be more about how do we enhance one's detoxification versus simply just sort of saying, you're sensitive to that food, you're sensitive to that. What we found is optimizing detox pathways strategically, people are able to bring foods back into their diet. And they're able to have a much more varied diet than they'd been used to by restriction through having consulted a naturopath or somebody in functional medicine. So, anyways, very exciting. I don't want though to get too off track here. I wanted to ask your opinion specifically around ingredients and supplementation as it relates to self-healing. What supplements? I mean, we talked a little bit about food, but different to food because these are therapeutic interventions. What supplements do you often recommend or have seen success in boosting the body's ability to self-heal?
Many times people ask me the question, if I just eat healthy, do I need to take a supplement? And the thing is that I have seen some of the most disciplined people. It's not easy to eat healthy every single meal. It's not easy. But supplementation, what's beautiful is that you can actually be very strategic in what your body may need. So for instance, when I wake up in the morning, for me, some key supplements that I have found to be very exciting for me is minerals first thing in the morning, because I want to make sure that my body is having that, because first thing in the morning is when your body demands the more from you. So a lot of times, I did intermittent fasting for 15 years. And then I started realizing that the new research is saying, I used to go fasting almost 22 hours, just have one meal a day. And then I realized I wasn't doing a service to myself because I was missing my supplementation and my food early morning when I was actually the most active. It's your creative time, and I'm an early riser. I go to bed at 9:30 or 10, and I get up at 5. So I'm an early riser, and I work out first thing in the morning too. First thing that I do after my gratitude, I do a technology called Brain Tap, which I really put my gratitude and my subconscious mind, and then I hit the gym. I mean, I've trained myself to do that no matter where I am in the world. I do some kind of exercise. If I'm on the beach, I go swimming and do my exercise on the beach. I go to the gym in the hotel or wherever I am. I have also the equipment. So I would say minerals. The other one that I think is important is greens. There's a lot of great supplementation in greens, but we don't have enough greens in our diets. Based on our plate, it should be at least 50% of our plate should be greens. And what I notice when I look at people's plates, I'm always observing and I'm always asking my patients and my clients. And what I find is that a lot of times it's maybe a quarter or none at all. They just don't like the greens. So supplementation is a wonderful way to supplement what you should be having instead of replacing, right? So I'm always going to encourage you. I say, listen, if you don't like to have a salad, that's great. Could we blend it? Could I give you a recipe of a smoothie that is delicious, but I'm going to make sure that at least you get enough green? Like I mentioned kale a little bit earlier because I like spinach. I like kale in my smoothie in the mornings. Just because they have that, I add the avocado. I add half an apple just to put a little bit of fruit and a little bit of sweetness to it. Sometimes I may add half a banana or a banana. Sometimes I don't, depending on how I feel. But that is a wonderful thing. But then I take my supplements with it. And then lately I've been taking there's a company out there that has some great products that enhance, the production of stem cells in your body. And I've been taking that and I've been feeling really energized in the morning. I do
is this spermidine or is this
this one
precursor?
That I came in, I learned about them at A4M, and then I saw them again at Dave Asprey's Biohacking, and it's called Stem Regen. And,
oh yeah, sure.
And it's just amazing the way I feel. And then I even went to the founder and I said, you guys recommend two a day, but I'm now taking 6 a day. And my body feels just amazing because it's given me so much supplementation of things that I cannot get through my foods alone. And that's
Right.
the benefit of that. And
And I think
then
that's the underpinning right there. That's the underpinning. Most people, we have to rethink supplementation. What it used to mean is making sure you fulfill sort of gaps in your diet where you might not be getting a certain amount of a vitamin. And I think you're right about we're all missing, those the multitude of micronutrients coming from greens. And I'm not one of those that buy into we shouldn't be eating greens. I think that's crazy. I think certain people are built to eat certain amounts of different macros, but anthropological evidence suggests, and Paleolithic and all the stuff out of biological evolution suggests we've always had greens, berries often, and even twigs in our gut along with meat. So my point though is
it's easier to
supplementing.
digest. It's easier to
Right.
digest is what we
It's a
find,
fiber. We need stuff to move
Yeah,
through to support the microbiome. But,
yeah.
supplementation is not, we have to redefine, this is nomenclature. Therapeutic intervention of an ingredient that can, for lack of a better word, wash over your genes to express different epigenetics, depending on what you need help with, is the name of the game. It's not just replacing a gap in your diet. So, that's where I sort of wanted to mention what we're doing, especially as it relates to the macros. I mean, not everyone should be going keto. Not everyone should be paleo. Not everyone should be certainly, strictly animal based. And some people are better designed genetically for vegan. But no matter what you're doing, supplementation is beyond gaps in your diet. It's using ingredients at well-studied, evidence-based, you'd agree, at therapeutic levels that you could never find on your plate. I don't care if you're, eating once a day or 10 times a day, you'd never have that amount of that ingredient out of your diet, right?
But imagine before genomics, it was a guessing game. I give you a
Yeah.
perfect example. I have two boys. So as a parent, you assume that what you feed in your children is the right thing for them. But imagine being able to get some saliva, do a genome test, and all of a sudden it gives you the blueprint that each child is actually going to be different. And now imagine what that would do for a parent. So for my clients, the reason that I recommend, and I'm one of your biggest fans for DNA company, is because I want everybody to understand themselves to no end. When I talked about self-healing, what many of those patients, so the way that book came out, one of the biggest publishing agents wanted me to write a book for her. And she asked me, she said, what is the one message you want to leave the world? The one thing. And I said, I want them to be empowered rather than disempowered during this difficult time of healthcare, right? Because most people feel disempowered when they're diagnosed with a condition, when they are put through a system that does not give them a proper answer to their problem. That is one after the other. It's like a maze. You go here for this, you go there for that, etc. So we came up with the power of self-healing because I wanted people to be empowered to recognize a self-healing power before they do other things. Begin with that. And I felt that would be the greatest gift that I could give humanity. But when I started interviewing all of these patients that were diagnosed with terminal illness, and I asked them, what healed you? And I started understanding that for some of them, it was their diet, it was their supplementation, right? For others, it was the emotional. They actually healed some of the emotional hardships that they were holding on to. And then for others, it was their spirituality. They had been raised, and I'm not talking about religion, I'm talking about being more spiritual. I mean, I even talk about meditation and prayer, the power of prayer. The science is full of literature, how prayer can be so powerful just as much as meditation. But there's a lot of people that don't think of prayer like that. They think that, I only pray when I go to my church,
Right.
my synagogue. So the idea behind that is because these patients taught me that there was so much more to the healing process that I even thought there was, that there were components to that healing process that were different for everyone that was out there. So to me, when you have your test, right, your genetic testing, now all of a sudden, and especially the way you guys have expanded all of this testing, you have an understanding of how your genetic makeup is, which is the foundation to you. Now, if you can translate that information into practical action steps every single day, And the way that I teach it is just make a better choice today than you made yesterday. That's all I'm asking. One better choice today. It can make it as simple as that. You didn't have any greens yesterday. Okay, today I'm going to have a salad for lunch, or maybe do a green smoothie, or maybe even add some supplementation to my greens into my day, whatever the case may be. I didn't work out. Great. Today I'm actually going to go for a walk for 20 minutes. But one choice. The problem was before we didn't know what was the best choice for us. But now we have the ability to know exactly not only foods, behaviors, mindset, all of these things that we can now understand. And that's really why when I got my report, I was so excited, because the way that it's delivered to me and to the patient is one that actually makes it like, this is so easy. All I have to do is just decide which behavior I'm going to take today. And as long as you stay within your blueprint, all of a sudden you have a much greater chance to heal than ever, because now you're making decisions that are actually good decisions for you. It's not a guessing game anymore.
Well, I appreciate all of that because, actionable insights, tangible insights that are informed based on who you are is the name of the game. But I think also when we pride ourselves on this, and it's something that I think we get most often feedback for, is there is so much out there. Diet, supplements, actionable, biohacking, that what our test does for most people is refines it down, because there's a lot of great stuff out there. There's a lot of nonsense as well. There's a lot of noise, but there's a lot of really good stuff in the world of self-healing support. But which ones do you do? And that's really what the DNA company DNA 360 test, anyways, the genomic assessment is it fine-tunes actionable insights to self-heal, but based on genetics informed, and to create this sort of guidebook for you. And so therefore you can hone your resources. And by resources, I don't just mean financial, because you're not going to spend on every biohack out there either, but also your time and energy. I mean, you can't do everything. And that was one other question I had for you, actually, as it pertains, because we spoke about, dietary supplementation, but there's this sort of movement toward technologies. You mentioned Dr. Patrick Porter's Brain Tap. I love it as well. It's a really applicable way, great friend of the company, to get your mind in the right space 10, 15 minutes a day. And the translational science is 10 minutes in parasympathetic mode, focused, in that meditative state, increased alpha wave, etc., is equivalent to 4 hours in parasympathetic or relaxed state to allow your body to heal. So here's my question. What are some of the latest non-drug, non-invasive, but specifically technological maybe devices or so forth out there that's caught your attention that support the self-healing process?
If you come to any of my homes, you'll see where I'm a technology
decked out,
crazy. So, for instance, for me, infrared sauna, use it every day. It's one of the best technologies. Cold plunge, one of the best technologies towards longevity, proven by science. All of this has been proven by science. There's another company out there that has what is called microcirculation. It's called Avicen. And you just put your hand for 30 minutes or an hour. And it actually has been tested and FDA cleared that it goes through your whole body and it increases the capillaries that are not allowing the blood supply to enter certain cells in the body. So the healing.
Is that PEMF technology? Is that
no,
PEMF?
No, it's actually, it's heat that increases the circulation through the whole body. I have a technology that is called Vibrogenics, and it's a very fancy vibroplate. Not only does it have the vibration, but they've also put all the right frequencies. So you can actually, as you exercise, you can put the frequencies that are actually going to cancel any condition that you may be dealing with right now. And you have the top of your line. We use also LED lights. I love that. And if you want to buy an LED bed, those have become very popular right now. PEMF is one of my favorite technologies because it's actually one of the most powerful ones to vibrate and shake the body into a more high vibration for healing. So then there's many. There's
so many out there.
But the main thing is to explore, but also remember, when you do your tests, you have the ability to understand what your body is more susceptible to. So the reason is I have patients that have bought a LED bed, let's say for $100,000, and they're not getting the same results as somebody else that they knew, the person that encouraged them to buy one. And they asked me why. And then when we do the testing, you realize that their bodies are not made the same way, and their body is not necessarily going to benefit as much from the photomodulation than the other person, right?
That's
And
right.
so to me, the important thing is to at least be aware, right? Be mindful of what is the genetic makeup of your body. Because
That's
if
right.
you can tap into that, it's going to help you be more right than wrong in the choices that you're making every day. If you knew that you
Absolutely.
are diabetic, right? And all of a sudden there's a sneaker bar and you're so tempted to have it, but you're going to eat it. And all of a sudden it shoots your sugar blood levels. That's one example. But what if you knew pretty much what were all the things out there that could actually put you backwards in your healing process rather than accelerating your healing process? And that to me is why I recommend all my patients that the foundational thing is you got to know your blueprint. You got to do the
Right.
test. Then look at the advice, right? As to what are the epigenetics, the behaviors that I can implement into my life that can actually help me accelerate my healing process, my health process. And then you are going to be much more effective in the longevity journey instead of feeling like you're 30 or 40 years old and you're feeling like 80, which is a lot of
Absolutely.
people
Couldn't
out
agree with you more. And you and I are tech twins. So we're decked out with every possible, human optimization gadget from the world of biohacking. So that's for sure. However, not everyone, as we talked about, has the time, the inclination, and or the financial aptitude to be able to spend on all these things. So yes, I appreciate that point that the DNA company 360 test and others that we offer allow you to hone in and focus on what's going to work. Here's my favorite example, by the way. And again, now that we've got 20,000 samples for which we can do some of this internal research and extend outward into some of the research that already exists in the world. We live north of, at least I do. I live north of 40 degrees, and we just don't get enough sun, where I live. And a huge majority of the world's population just doesn't. And we all have these different vitamin D receptor genes, circulation genes, transport, absorption genes. So, how we absorb and use vitamin D, and it's key, it's crucial, of course, to the immune system, to metabolism, to aging, to brain health. It extends itself through and through the body, bone health, heart health, everything. But it also plays a huge role on mood. And there are other genes for which we've acknowledged through executive function, mood, and behavior, but particularly something called BDNF, a brain derived neurotrophic factor. That gene is responsible not just for mood, but neuroplasticity, as you know, in the brain, neurogenesis, how our brain remembers, connects, disconnects, etc. So these epidemiological studies have been done, and folks that are over there in Norway, the Norwegian, Netherlands, and all those different places in the northeast of the world, from where we stand anyway, they are considered the happiest people on the planet. And they're way above sun. Like they don't get anywhere near enough sun. They have to supplement because of their genetics with vitamin D to offset. But how are they getting this mood behavior regulator, BDNF, upregulated? They have more saunas per capita than people. There's 1.5 saunas per person in that country, some of which they get together and have conversations over work, others in their family. So heat exposure, as you were talking about a minute ago, heat exposure through infrared sauna is going to upregulate BDNF and actually superimpose a state of feeling well, happiness, exuding that sensation of wellness. So if your genes describe low BDNF, you got to do stuff to elevate it, and sauna is one of those things. Appreciating your time, Doc. You've spent a lot of time with us. I really appreciate all this information you've shared with us here today. But before we wrap up here, can you walk us through, because I think most people have to understand this is way shorter than they imagine self-healing to occur and translate. You describe a 21-day self-healing program. What should listeners do to start that today? Where can they go to learn more? How do they get started on a 21-day self-healing program?
If they go to my website, from there, you can pretty much have access to everything. It's drfabmancini.com. But the 21-day program, what I wanted to do in that book is I wanted to end the last chapter with an easy to do action step that everybody can do. And I chose 21 days because based on data out there, it takes about 21 days to make something a habit. And I want this to be a habit for life. So the basic core of it is you're going to work on your physical and your emotional and your spiritual life, and every single day. So you're going to do like a physical activity. It could be exercise, eating healthier, supplementing, maybe seeing a holistic provider. You're going to do an emotional activity, such as maybe forgive somebody that's been hurt you in the past, maybe living a little bit more gratitude and wake up, like you said, with gratitude every day, or maybe even love yourself a little bit more so you can love others more. And then spiritually, I was just wanting people to pray more, meditate more, spend more time in nature, and also have a sense of purpose. Why are you here? What is it that you're here to do? And that's how I describe spirituality. So every single day, you're going to at least make one decision on each one of those three categories: physical, emotional, and spiritual. And I gave you all the details throughout the book. And then I want you to just act on it every single day for 21 days. In the book, I explain and give you a lot of options of what to do. But if you do at least one of those every single day, so that means one physical, one emotional, and one spiritual, you have a much better chance of self-healing than if you don't do anything.
Any feedback or even case examples that you receive from those that have followed the program that just can never leave your mind? I know there's too many to mention today, but just a few that you're just,
I can tell
you go back to it.
I have one lady that had been angry with her sister for 20 years, would not speak to each other, didn't even remember why they fought in the first place. And when she read that chapter on forgiveness, she said, she wrote me, she said, I read that chapter and immediately I called my sister and I said, I want to see you. And I think it's time we can talk. And now they have repaired that relationship. People that actually were failing in their nutrition, they began to actually eat better nutrition and supplement properly. And of course, the natural state is for your body to lose weight and to lose some of that inflammation and to feel more energy and all of that. I have people that actually practice the prayer and the meditation, and they were able to change belief systems and raise their belief system to feel that there's something that could be hopeful, because they were told that there was nothing that was going to help them. And they used meditation and prayer as a way to get themselves out of other people's opinions, right? They needed to raise their level of vibration, their level of belief. So that way they themselves could say to themselves, maybe there's not a case in the world that has actually been healed like mine. But what if I'm the first one? There's always a first one. Right. And begin there. So once you raise the level of thought, then all of a sudden now you begin to see and attract people that come to you with suggestions, opinions, research that you can look into. So that's kind of the way that I boiled it down, because I want people to recognize that information is important, but information without application can never be transformational. And you're looking for a change. If you're looking for a change, you got to act on the information that you learn.
Well, for anyone out there just beginning their self-healing journey, or maybe you want some more actionable, tangible tips, I feel like the most important first step in toward that action is simply purchasing the book, The Power of Self-Healing. The first step is turn the page. So as we wrap up here, Dr. Fab, I'm going to just recommend to everyone a quick tip to empower their self-healing journey, besides the book, besides learning more about what you offer up. Start by understanding your unique genetic blueprint. We've been saying this throughout the show. Knowledge is power. And when you know what your DNA 360 report reveals about your health, you can make smarter, more personalized, specific to you choices every day. This is your instruction manual. It's your user guide to a better you. So I got to say emphatically, thank you so much for joining us on the DNA Talks podcast. And folks, if you found today's conversation as inspiring as I did, be sure to subscribe, leave a comment, follow us on social media for more insights. And don't forget to pick up Dr. Fab's book, The Power of Self-Healing, and start your 21-day program today. Remind us again, where can they find out more about you, your website?
If you go to drfabmancini.com, you can pretty much reach me there.
Awesome. And folks, if you're interested in getting your own DNA 360 test, simply go to the DNAcompany.com and use the code HealthSpan50. That's all capitals, HealthSpan, SPAN 50 at checkout. And that's $50 off all testing, by the way, except our liquid cancer biopsy test. And you'll get a free digital copy of my latest book, Brain Spanners. And that's just focused on the concept of extending not just lifespan, but brain span and the number of years that you can add healthy years to your brain. So again, be sure to subscribe, comment, follow us on social media. Until next time, remember your health journey is in your hands, and unlocking the secrets hidden within your DNA can literally help you change the day you die. Till next time.